So if you leave $1 in a standard bank account for 20 years, you haven't actually kept it safe. You've actively decided to lose half its value.
Yeah, mathematically speaking, you're just burning it.
Exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a really hard look at a fascinating framework developed by GloryGlobal. It's called the 3 Pathways to Wealth.
Right.
And the mission today is to pull back the curtain on the actual mechanics of financial growth. Because, whether you are actively managing your money or just entirely ignoring it, your money is never just sitting still.
No, never.
It is always doing something, right? It's always operating within a specific mathematical structure.
And, well, for a lot of people, that structure is actually working directly against them.
Yeah.
The core premise we're unpacking today is that there are essentially 3 distinct pathways your assets can take. You've got fixed, variable, and indexed.
Okay, so fixed, variable, indexed.
Exactly. And our goal is to move past the superficial marketing terms and analyze the underlying architecture of each of these. We want to look at the structural trade-offs and the actual math so you can determine which pathway actually aligns with your life.
Right, because everyone's timeline is different. So let's start with the baseline. Pathway number 1 is fixed growth.
The default.
Yeah, the default setting for the vast majority of people. You put your capital into a vehicle, like a CD or a standard savings account, and you are promised a specific, predictable yield.
Mm-hmm.
The principal is protected, and the growth rate is locked in.
Yeah.
It feels like driving the exact speed limit in the slow lane, right?
Right.
It's safe. But what if the destination you're driving toward is actually moving away from you?
That is the perfect way to put it. The appeal here is purely psychological.
Right.
Fixed growth satisfies this very primal human desire for certainty. You check your account on Tuesday, and the number is, it's slightly larger than it was on Monday.
It never goes backward.
It never goes backward. But if we analyze the mechanics of this pathway over a long timeline, that feeling of absolute safety is, well, it's an illusion.
Because of the silent thief in the room. Right. Inflation. And I want to get beyond the basic idea that, things just get more expensive.
Right. It's worse than that.
What makes the fixed pathway so dangerous is the compounding nature of that loss, right?
That is exactly the hidden vulnerability. Let's just look at the math for a second.
Okay.
If you were operating in a fixed environment yielding, say, 2% annually, but the broader inflationary environment is running at 4%.
Which is pretty common.
Very common. You aren't just missing out on growth at that point. You are guaranteeing a negative real return.
Wow.
Your actual purchasing power is mathematically decaying by 2% every single year.
It's essentially this financial treadmill where someone else controls the speed and they just keep turning it up while you are locked at a walking pace.
A perfect way to visualize it. Over a 30-year working life, that negative spread compounds just as ruthlessly as interest does.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, $100,000 might still look like $100,000 on paper, which preserves that illusion of safety. But its actual utility, like what it can actually buy in the real economy, has been drastically hollowed out.
Right.
The GloryGlobal material synthesizes this pathway as a paradox, calling it safe but slow. But I would argue it goes a step further. Over a long enough horizon, slow mathematically transforms into unsafe.
Okay, so if staying in that fixed slow lane guarantees a slow death by 1,000 inflationary cuts, a rational person realizes they have to make a move.
They have to.
They have to find a yield that outpaces the decay of purchasing power. And that organic pivot naturally brings us to the second pathway, which is variable growth.
Right. Variable growth is the complete abandonment of the fixed promise. You are decoupling your capital from a guaranteed rate and attaching it directly to the performance of the broader market.
Mm-hmm.
So equities, mutual funds, real estate assets, where the value fluctuates based on, economic output and market sentiment.
So the trade-off is pretty obvious here. You get access to the upside. You finally have a mathematical engine capable of outpacing inflation.
Exactly.
But you are suddenly exposed to the downside. And the common narrative here is the emotional roller coaster of the stock market.
Right, the ups and downs.
Yeah, but looking at the source material, I don't think it's just about the psychological stress of seeing red numbers on a screen. If variable growth gives us the big wins, why are so many people paralyzed by it? The source says, not everyone is built for that ride. Are we just psychologically unprepared for market dips, or is there more to it?
Well, it's human nature to panic. definitely. But there is a structural danger to variable growth that goes way beyond just feeling bad.
Okay.
You are hitting on one of the most critical concepts in behavioral finance. It's the asymmetry of loss.
Asymmetry of loss. Break that down.
The variable pathway doesn't just introduce psychological volatility. It introduces a mathematical headwind when things go wrong.
Okay.
If your portfolio drops by 50% during a market correction, you don't need a 50% gain to recover. You need a 100% gain just to get back to zero.
Wait, really? Oh, because, right, okay. If you have $10,000 and you lose half, you have $5,000.
Exactly.
And a 50% gain on that $5,000 only gets you back to $7,500. That is brutal.
It is entirely brutal, and that mathematical reality forces investors in the variable pathway to spend years of their wealth-building timeline simply repairing damage.
Just digging out of a hole.
Right. You are burning time, which is the one asset you absolutely cannot earn more of, just waiting for a recovery.
And what happens if you don't have the time to wait? I mean, the GloryGlobal text notes that not everyone's built for that ride, but it feels like it's less about personality and more about timing.
It is entirely about timing. It's specifically a phenomenon known as sequence of returns risk.
Sequence of returns.
Yeah. Let's say you have spent 30 years building your capital in the variable pathway. You are, say, 1 year away from needing to draw down on that money to fund your life.
Like retiring.
Like retiring.
Yeah.
If the market experiences a severe contraction at that exact moment, you are forced to sell assets at depressed prices.
Oh, man.
You lock in those losses permanently.
Because you can't wait for the recovery. You need the capital to live today.
Exactly. You are withdrawing capital from a shrinking pool, which accelerates the depletion of your wealth.
Wow.
This is why the variable pathway, despite being the greatest wealth creation engine in history, paralyzes so many people. The opportunity for generational growth is inherently tethered to the risk of catastrophic timing.
Okay, let's pause here for a second because we have established a seemingly impossible dilemma for the listener right now.
We really have.
The fixed pathway is a guaranteed slow loss of purchasing power. The variable pathway offers salvation from inflation, but threatens to completely obliterate your principal if the sequence of returns hits you at the wrong moment.
Yeah.
It feels like you are forced to choose between slowly starving to death or risking it all by walking through a minefield.
It's not a great set of options.
No, there has to be a structural middle ground, and I think that introduces the third framework from the source material, indexed growth.
Yes. Index growth fundamentally alters the binary choice we just outlined. It is a strategy designed to capture a portion of the market's upward momentum while completely insulating the principal from downward volatility.
Okay, wait. I need to push back hard on this. Getting the upside of the market without taking on the downside, that sounds suspiciously like a financial cheat code. I mean, Wall Street doesn't just hand out free safety nets out of the goodness of their hearts.
No, they certainly do not.
Right. If I can get market returns without market risk, why wouldn't literally every single person put all their money into an index strategy? What is the actual catch here? Because there's always a catch.
That is exactly the right skepticism to bring to this. It isn't magic, and it certainly isn't a cheat code. It is a highly specific structural trade-off. The catch is that you do not get infinite upside. The institutions offering index strategies impose boundaries. They usually do this in the form of cap rates or participation rates.
Okay, break that down for me. What does a cap rate actually look like in practice?
Let's use a cap rate as an example. Say the index you are tracking, like the S&P 500, has a massive bull run and surges by 20% in a given year.
A great year.
A great year. But your indexed account does not grow by 20%. Your growth might be capped at, let's say, 10%. You sacrifice the absolute peak of the market frenzy.
So you are leaving money on the table.
You are, absolutely. But you are leaving that money on the table to purchase the floor.
The floor.
Right. Because in exchange for capping your gains, the institution guarantees your principal against market losses. If that same index plummets by 20% the following year, your account doesn't drop by 20%.
It doesn't.
No. It simply credits a 0% return. Your principal remains perfectly intact.
Wow. Zero is your hero in a down year. But how is that actually happening under the hood? I want to understand the plumbing here. Because an institution promising to eat a 20% market loss on my behalf sounds like a really quick way for that institution to go bankrupt.
It does sound like that, but the underlying mechanics are actually fascinating. When you place capital into an index strategy, the institution isn't just dumping your money into the stock market and hoping for the best.
Okay.
They are engaged in sophisticated asset liability matching. A vast majority of your principal, often around 95% of it, is placed into ultra-safe, fixed-income vehicles like zero-coupon bonds.
Oh, okay. Bonds that are basically guaranteed to mature to the full value of your initial principal by the end of the term?
Precisely. That is what structurally guarantees the floor. Your actual principal was never in the volatile stock market to begin with.
Wait, really?
Really. Then, the institution takes the remaining small percentage, which is essentially the anticipated interest from those bonds, and uses it to purchase call options on the market index.
Ah, so they are using the interest to buy the potential for upside rather than risking the principal itself. That's incredibly smart.
That is the architecture of the pathway.
Yeah.
If the market tanks, the call options just expire worthless. You lost the interest you might have made, which is why your account credits to zero. But your bond matured to replace your full principal.
Wow.
And if the market rallies, those options pay out, providing the variable growth up to that cap rate we discussed earlier.
So instead of the classic roller coaster analogy we always hear, it operates much more like a financial socket wrench.
A socket wrench. I like that visual. Expand on that.
Think about turning a wrench. You push it forward, the gear catches, and you capture the forward momentum of the market.
Right.
But when the market twists violently backward, the gear locks in place. It physically cannot lose ground. You don't get pushed backward.
That is an incredibly accurate mechanical metaphor. And when you realize that the gear locks, you start to understand how it fundamentally changes your relationship with wealth.
Yeah, the stress is just gone.
Exactly. You are no longer checking your account in a panic during a recession. You have completely eliminated that sequence of returns risk that makes the variable pathway so incredibly dangerous near retirement.
Because if the market crashes the year you need to draw down your money, you aren't forced into selling at a massive loss. You are just drawing from a flat account.
You retain your high water mark, and honestly, just as importantly, when the market inevitably recovers, you aren't spending the first 2 years of the new bull run just trying to get back to zero.
Right.
You get to compound your capped gains from an intact baseline.
You are compounding on top of preserved capital rather than desperately trying to fill a massive hole.
Exactly.
That completely shifts the timeline of wealth creation, which honestly brings us to the ultimate takeaway from the GloryGlobal framework. It isn't just about understanding the technical definitions of fixed, variable, and indexed.
No, not at all.
It is about applying this structural reality to the daily friction of your life.
The source material highlights a really harsh reality here. We are deeply, deeply conditioned by society to believe that financial success is a direct, linear result of physical or mental labor.
The cultural obsession with the grind.
Yes.
We optimize our resumes, we pick up side hustles, we track our productivity in apps. We assume that if we are falling behind financially, the only solution is to apply more physical or mental force to the problem. Just work harder.
But labor is only the engine that generates the initial capital. Earning money is just step one.
And what's step two?
Step two, the step that actually dictates your long-term reality, is the structural pathway you place that capital into.
Think about your own life right now listening to this. You could be working 60-hour weeks, putting in absolute maximum effort. But if the capital you generate from all that labor is sitting in the fixed pathway, you are literally running on a treadmill while inflation tilts the incline higher and higher.
Yep.
You are sweating, you are exhausted, but you are losing distance.
Or, conversely, you place it all in the variable pathway, you experience a massive market correction, and you watch 3 years of your labor just evaporate in 3 weeks.
And brutal.
The effort didn't change, but the structural exposure destroyed the result.
That is such a massive paradigm shift. Most people aren't stuck because they don't work hard enough.
No, they work plenty hard.
They are stuck because they are pouring highly optimized labor into wildly inefficient financial structures. They have just never been shown how to build the ratchet.
Real financial progress requires moving beyond just the act of earning. You have to become an active architect of your wealth.
I love that phrase, active architect.
And that requires a very brutally honest assessment of your current assets. You really need to look at your accounts and ask, which of these 3 pathways am I currently on? And does that pathway actually align with my tolerance for risk and my timeline for needing this capital?
Right. If you are entirely in the fixed lane, are you truly okay with the mathematical certainty of falling behind inflation?
If you are entirely in the variable lane, are you structurally prepared to absorb a 40% drawdown if it happens tomorrow morning?
Or do you need to actively transition capital into the index lane to build that middle ground of opportunity and security?
Right.
It requires an intentional decision. You cannot passively hope your money finds its way into the right structure.
Because abstract knowledge without application just doesn't change your financial reality.
Yep.
Understanding the mechanics of zero-coupon bonds and cap rates is a great theoretical foundation, but analyzing your own portfolio and executing a structural shift, that is the practical application.
And the reality is mapping out these pathways and building these index safety nets requires some pretty heavy mathematical lifting.
It does.
It isn't something you typically just, click a button to set up on your own over the weekend. Because applying this framework to a complex personal portfolio requires precision, GloryGlobal actually provides a tool to help listeners navigate this exact process.
It is a really critical next step.
Yeah.
You need a structural analysis of where your capital currently sits, and you need a blueprint for how to realign it based on the actual mechanics we've discussed today.
There is a link provided in the show notes right below this. You can use it to schedule a free consultation with the team at GloryGlobal. It is an objective resource to map your specific assets against this three-pathway framework. If this deep dive got you thinking, and it really should have, don't let this insight just fade into the background noise.
Take action.
Yeah, take action. Use the tool to get absolute clarity on your own financial architecture.
The goal is to build a strategy where the structure of your wealth does the heavy lifting rather than relying solely on your ongoing labor.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As we have seen, hard work is merely the prerequisite.
Yeah.
Structure is the ultimate differentiator for long-term wealth.
Structure is everything. So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to dissect as you go about the rest of your week. We started today by visualizing your money as something inherently active, right? Something that is always operating within a mathematical framework. Well, if your money had to submit a formal performance review right now, today, based on the three pathways we just explored, what grade would it get? Oh, that's a tough question. And more importantly, if it is currently failing to reach its potential, who is really the one managing its career?
A very provocative but entirely necessary question to ask yourself.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this exploration of GloryGlobal's framework. We really hope it provided a new lens through which to view your own financial journey.
We will see you on the next deep dive.